everyone, Great Talon here, and today the prey is going to be the Octopath Traveler, the review, my review. So, the game is currently exclusive to the Nintendo Switch and is published by squareenix and developed by Acquire Studios in part. It's a fresh yet familiar take on the classic JRPG genre, the Japanese role-playing game genre, of the days of old. Like if you've played Final Fantasy VI or my personal favorite Chrono Trigger back in the day, it's just like those. And if you haven't, you should definitely, if you're a fan of those old school role-playing games, definitely on the Japanese traditional style as well, those turn-based, a little bit of a grind here and there and whatnot. So yeah, there will be some minimal spoilers for this episode, but not too much about the story, but more so about the gameplay and the mechanics and so on and so forth. But let's just go ahead and jump right in and see if this game is truly worth your time. Okay, so right off the bat here, the visuals are pretty damn impressive, folks, for the sprites that resemble the glory days of the 16-bit era, when you were slogging around in your house in your tidy whities playing the Super Nintendo as a child. The use of the Unreal 4 engine here is great and it's well implemented. Not only do character sprite models look smoother and sleeker, but the environment looks refreshing and crisp as well. For example, you'll be walking around exploring massive fields and you'll notice the blades of grass swaying in the wind, or perhaps crossing a bridge and the backdrop showcases sparkling, moving bodies of water. It's little nuances like this that captivate and glamour the player as a whole by providing a fresh new look, but at the same time triggering that nostalgic member berry by fusing the look of new and old together into one robustly made package. Okay, next up we have gameplay and control. Controlling the set of 4 characters at once is as tight and as responsive as you would imagine it to be, as if you were playing the game on a legacy console back in the day. You can either manipulate character movements with the directional pad or joystick, but I found myself using the joystick for navigating players outside of combat, when while I was in combat I used the directional pad to make my selections in the menu. And speaking of combat side of gameplay, this is where Octopath Traveler truly shines and shows its bright and shiny JRPG colors. First off, this is a traditional Japanese role-playing game. Now, what does that mean for you? This means that you can toss any and all hope of pushing a button and a hacking and slashing battle or combat mechanic on command will happen. That will not happen here, folks. Instead, you dive into the classic turn-based battle style mechanic and have to strategize and figure out your enemy weaknesses and break their shields and render them unconscious for a turn or two. There are 8 starting job classes for you to choose from, and in turn 8 separate uniquely developed character stories as well. The job classes range from warrior hunter to cleric scholar to thief merchant and to dancer apothecary, each showcasing an elaborate portrayal of skills. Clerics, scholars, and apothecaries have the ability to heal or do elemental damage, light or poison-based damage, for example, while a warrior or hunter will rely on their physical prowess, such as raining a hailstorm of arrows or polearms down upon foes and summoning beasts of burden to do their dirty work. After you complete all 8 characters in Chapter 1 of the individual stories, you unlock the ability to find and unlock a secondary job class character and to equip them to their first primary job class. So you can have 2 job classes per character, essentially. You can make an apothecary class, a primary class with a merchant, a subclass, and so on and so forth. Weapons in the game are quite varied too and include broadswords, daggers, axes, polearms, mages, staffs, and bows. Armor is key too to boost your physical and elemental defenses. I found myself buying and equipping new armor that I found amongst treasure chests or by purchasing in each new town I arrived in. Each of the 8 characters also has a special perk attribute exclusive to that character. For example, if playing as Therion the Thief, you can waltz around town picking people's pockets like you're a world-class kleptomaniac, which is what I love doing, actually, personally, from time to time, and I got so much good stuff from doing that. I'm such a little thief. Tressa the Merchant can not only bargain and buy items from the townsfolk, but also if you come out into a new area, she has a perk that allows you to spot leftover coins dropped by the Fallen in combat, which is another great way to rack up some extra money in the game, which isn't really that hard to do, combat, actually. Finally, we come to the grinding. Yes, folks, there is grinding, but it is a fun grind. Now, what do I mean by a grind? Grinding is actually a way of leveling up your character to meet the requirements in order to progress in the natural progression of the story. But to be quite honest with you, I really enjoyed the grinding. It was a fun grind, to be honest. in my opinion. Grinding might be the only true Achilles heel of this game for some of you out there, but not to me. It wasn't that bad. It's not as bad as, say, games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which for me, though, it was terrible. That game just had tremendous amount of grinding for no reason, and it had little payoff in the end. This game is truly rewarding in every sense if you do grind and commit to it, commit to the story and the actual game. But still, it might slow those down who are just looking to flow of the game through just by doing primarily story-based stuff. If you're just looking to do story stuff and now grinding, this isn't going to be the game for you. You're not going to be having fun here. But honestly, it's just... It doesn't take away that much because you do gain XP and level up at a normal rate for the most part. If you do every single character's chapters, you might have to do some mild grinding in between, but that's it. The biggest grind for me took place between chapters 1 and 2. The level requirement for chapter 2 was over 10 to 12 levels above the requirement for chapter 1, but between 3 and 4 it was just a 5-level gap, which was not a big deal. There is actually a neat trick that I'm actually doing here now on screen. If you go to the Grand Port city and fight enemies called these Kingfishers, you can actually rack up a tremendous amount of XP if you have a scholar and do this little scenario, ritual in combat. You can go from level 20 to 45 in like hours, so it's really a helpful grind section there. But besides a few hours here and there of light grinding, I had minimal complaints about the gameplay and overall control of this game. Alright, and next we come to story, narrative, and campaign. In terms of story here, there is surprising a lot of it, and some of the character stories will hit you right in the feels, such as Primrose's story, which I enjoyed the most, followed by Alphin's story. Now you get 8 character stories, each unique with their own backgrounds, and each character has 4 story chapters. So in total, that's roughly 32 chapters in the entire game, not including the post-game stuff. That's a pretty hefty game, folks, in my honest opinion. You have tales that range from restoring honor of the noble knight Ulbrich to making a name for yourself as a traveling merchant Tressa, to a simple yet effective revenge tale of the dancer Primrose. Each story is heartfelt and sincere and will take you on a quest in numerous regions, some sun-drenched and other covered with glistening snow. There is also some voice acting as well, surprisingly, which, during some of the story segments, which I thought was a nice touch and added weight and depth of scope to each character's tale.
Lesson up. Yeah! Bring it on!
And okay, so the sound, music, and voice here, speaking of the sound, the voice acting, while present, it's not its strongest suit, but the music is very well done. It's like almost orchestrated, and it's very whimsical and very engaging. But sometimes the voice acting can get a little annoying on some characters, making you want to potentially skip their scenes more so than others. They sound a bit whiny and high-pitched, and while others sound a bit more sincere. It's a hit or miss, it's give or take. But, yeah, so the musical score, on the other hand, is profound enough to some of the instrumental tunes can get stuck in your head for quite a while, even after you stop playing. Battle sound effects are spot on as well and married nicely in the incorporation of the use of the rumble feature of the Switch, whether you're playing either the Pro Controller or the Joy-Cons. Okay, so next up, second to last, is the replay value. As in the case with most JRPGs, the replay value depends on your demeanor and resistance to the grinding in the long run. To complete the story, it will take you about 54 hours, roughly. I was at about 50 hours before, but now after I finished the game, it's about 55, close to 56 hours, after just finishing the main character and all their 8 individual stories, all 32 chapters. So altogether, you're looking at roughly 55 to 60 hours just for the main story completion. This does not include post-game, though, which is another 4 dungeons to explore that require a bit more grinding, as they are usually really high dungeons, and you need to be close, and that will add it up to over 80 hours, I would imagine, depending on your skill and tolerance for grinding the levels. To me, in all honesty, I'm going to put down Octopath after I finish the story, which I actually did. I feel like 50 plus hours is more than enough time. I have already gotten enough of bang for my buck and out of this game and then some. If you're a fan of traditional JRPGs and don't mind the occasional grind to level up and you get even better loot, then by all means this game will have a high replay value for you. However, if you're like me and would just like to see how each and every the individual stories plays out, then I would say this has a replay value as a bit moderate after all is said and done. Okay, now my overall score, it's going to be an 8 out of 10. So why isn't it 8 out of 10? Because if you're even a remote fan of the classic old school JRPGs like Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger, then you will be nestled right at home here. I really enjoyed my time with Octopath, even with a bit of a grind in between. It wasn't an overbearing grind like the other games I played recently, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I wanted to castrate myself at the wooden cooking spoon at the end, just to make the grind stop, so I could see the lackluster ending. But rather, this was a necessary grind here in Octopath, so you can familiarize yourself with the depth in the combat mechanics to be successful in the game. However, with that being said, if you're a newcomer to the JRPG genre, or just curious to try Octopath because you heard from your friends it was neat, then you may be a bit dazed and confused at the end of the day. Which brings me to my final point, is it worth your time? Honestly, it varies, okay? Because if you're newcomers to the JRPG genre, you're not gonna feel probably at home here. You might shy away, you might actually stop playing the game. I recommend, honestly, I can recommend this game to avid fans of JRPG genre, or, you know, and for newcomers and people curious, might shy away. But if you really want to try the classic JRPG for beginners, might I suggest you check out Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo. Because honestly, folks, Chrono Trigger is a goddamn masterpiece, and I will fight anyone to the death who says otherwise. This game right here is a traditional JRPG, and it is a JRPG 101 for beginners. Honestly, there's very minimal challenge. I mean, you don't have to grind at all. It's perfect. It is goddamn perfect. And anybody who doesn't play this game, they're not a gamer. I said it, that's right. Okay, so before I actually stop doing this review and go play Chrono Trigger again, I'm just gonna stop here because I'm watching this and I want to go back and play it, so yeah. Anyway, back to Octopath. So anyway, folks, in the end, Octopath Traveler is a fun romp. Like I said before, you're going to have a little bit of a grind, and if you're a fan of these JRPG style games, you're going to be right at home. Now, the pros are going to be the best features of this game: the deep combat system, memorable characters, and a rewarding exploration and looting mechanics. And on the other side of the pond, or the other side of the fence, the worst features of the game are going to have to be the long level gaps between chapters that require grinding for leveling up, and occasionally annoying voice acting. But other than that, Octopath Traveler is great. It's a great RPG. It's a great Japanese RPG, traditional sense. It shows you that these games do have a demand nowadays. It's not just something of the past. And I believe they're actually working on a prequel to the game as well. So I'll be looking forward to that in the coming months or years to come. So what do you guys think of this video? If you like it, give it a thumbs up, and why not subscribe? If not, give it a thumbs down. Either way, you guys have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next one.